start off, I think this has to be the best backdrop
Yeah.
we've had for a guest so far. We did about 25 episodes. This has to be the best.
Well, thank you. I was going to do it in my cake studio, and then I kind of ran low on time, so I'm in my dining room.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for your time.
What an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. So this is my first podcast interviews, and I looked you guys up, and actually, I don't know if you saw, because I was listening to your podcast, but I wasn't actually following you. So just now,
Right.
I was like, I'm not even following them, so I just won't follow and everything. And
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for the support. And we have to say you are our first Netflix star guest on the show.
thank you. Use the word star very lightly.
We're also huge fans, not just of the show Is It Cake, but also of your work. And every single episode, we were just glued to the screen while watching you.
Thank you so much. I get nervous when I do those shows because I'm so like expressive and in the moment, and I'm just like, what is this gonna turn out like? So I got a lot of positive stuff. I think people got my personality from the show, that I'm just like really light and fun. So I'm glad that you did too.
No, that's the beautiful part about shows like these, right? For us, people like us who are the watchers, we feel like we know you so well. You're part of our lives. But it's such an honor, to have you with us today, and we'll kick it off.
Yes. So officially, we'd like to welcome you to our podcast show. This is called What's Your Sankalp? And you're with your hosts, Maunika and Sankalp.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you guys.
Well, you're an artist. Let's start off with that. At the top tier, you're an artist, and more specifically, you're a cake artist. You are a four-time winner already for a cake show, and more recently, we know you because of the show on Netflix. Is It Cake? And
Is It Cake too?
Is It Cake too?
Is It Cake too? Yes.
The form of this podcast. Our hope is we get to know more about your journey, how it all started, how did you end up being on the show, and that's just the beginning of it, right? There's so much more that must have happened after the show for you.
Yes, definitely.
So how do you introduce yourself? Is that decent? Did I do well?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I don't usually call myself an artist because that's a weird thing that I'm trying to embrace, because I know that I am an artist, and there are times that I have to tell myself, think like an artist. You are an artist now, because it didn't start out that way. It just started out, some people, it may start out for a love of art. For me, it started out just baking. I needed a hobby. So, but yeah, I think that was a really good way to introduce me. It's been a long journey. I started just as a teacher, a mom, and in my kitchen, just baking brownies, to be honest. And now, 6 TV shows later, and, 1 podcast later. I think now I would say that, I'm falling a little bit more into the artist role.
You mentioned about the journey that you've had. So let's start with that. How did you even bump into, making this now a career for yourself? I guess now you're doing this full time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but were you doing something else while you were trying to figure out if this can really be a serious career option for you? So let's go back in time and see how did you bump into this profession? Yeah.
So this, oh gosh, my journey is such a wild animal. So it started when I was 19. And a lot of people think it started before that, because my grandparents, I have one of my Nana, she is a cake decorator, and she was her whole life a cake decorator, a caterer, and all these things. But really, I had no interest back then. It wasn't until really, I was 19 years old. I was in college at the University of Louisiana here in Lafayette, and a Raging Cajun, and I needed a hobby. And so I literally went to the hobby store. I went to Michael's craft store, and I looked around, and I was like, what can I do? And I found a box of fondant, and my mom we never really got fancy cakes like that. And so I was like, well, what is this stuff? And so I took it home, opened the package because it comes in a really non-impressive package. It's like plastic wrap and everything. And I opened it up and I read the directions, rolled it out, slapped it on a cake, and it looked amazing. Or so I thought. And so I was posting it. And this was, I mean, I'm not good at math, but I'm 33. So 33 minus 19. So long ago. And everyone loved it. And I was like, oh, I can do this. And at the time I was still living with my parents. I lived with my parents through college. So it was my mother's kitchen that I was messing up. And so it wasn't so bad. And I just really, that's when I started kind of being like, you know what, I can decorate cakes. And from then it grew because, people wanted to pay me to make the cakes, as they should, because they're very expensive. Even if they're not good. I mean, they are so expensive to make. I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I was just like, okay, well, if people are going to pay me for it, I'm a college kid. I'm broke. I'm living at home. I say I'm broke, but I always held like 2 or 3 jobs. I'm a little bit of a go-getter. Like I can't stop. So I added on another side hustle, to my already, all my jobs at the time in college. And I just started making them for people, but it was so stressful because I would see these beautiful things that people wanted. And I was making like these, they weren't that great. I'll have to send you guys some pictures later. I call them rumply. They were very rumply. And I would like cry and I would just be like, why am I doing this? I can't let anybody pay me for this. And so I just decided to get a little bit better at it. And so I'm completely self-taught through YouTube, really.
Okay.
I mean, you guys know the power of YouTube. So yeah. So I just started, I wanted to get better. People were paying me their hard-earned money. And, I like a good deal and I want to get something good for it. So it's like, I really was putting so much emphasis on giving them a good product. So I was learning. And then when it really kind of got like the bug for me is I had my daughter. I was 22 years old at the time. I had my daughter. She's 10 now. And, I could just make her any cake. And I was like, oh, this is really, now I have a real, reason to just knock it out the park. And then I think she had just turned a year. And I found out that you could compete. And so as much as I've always wanted to compete, I'm not a sports girl. I never did cheerleading. I never did any sports really. I did basketball for a little while. They never let me in. And so, but I want to compete. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember it was in Austin, Texas. This show is still around. It's called That Takes the Cake Show. And it's more of like a convention. And so we would, me and I enlisted everyone in my family, my mom, my sister, and I was like, guys, we have to go to Austin. So we did. And this is the type of cake show that a lot of times people are confused when I talk about cake shows, because there's televised cake shows, obviously. And then there are these like convention sort of style cake shows where you can still compete and you can win money, but you make the cake ahead of time and then you bring it, and it's more like a showpiece
presentation.
Yes. And then the community comes in and they can like walk around and it really involves everybody. And so I did that. And funny thing, because it actually connects to Is It Cake, which is so crazy. That was my first ever competition. I believe it was in 2000 and I don't know. It was so long ago. 2014. And that was also Liz Merrick, who is on the show. She's a big fan favorite. I'm her fan. It was her first cake competition as well. And we actually competed against each other, and she made this phenomenal cake. And I was just like, what am I doing here? Look at all these amazing cakes. And so she placed first overall, and I placed third overall, which I was ecstatic. I acted like I won the lottery. I think I won $500. It didn't even pay for the trip, but that was really kind of what set the fire.
if I can ask, were you nervous? Because up until then, it was just a hobby, right? And then this is where you sort of made the decision and felt like you could compete with other people. So this means, were you confident enough to think that you were up to the standard, or were you still nervous and just sort of, let's see what happens?
So it's a strange thing about my, like, the way my brain works is like I never think that I'm up to the standard, but I also never don't do the thing. So
Right.
I was kind of thinking about my journey earlier, just like preparing for this. And I was like, I wonder how, how really did it come this way? And I think it's because I mostly say yes to opportunities, especially the opportunities that I don't think I'm ready for. So it's like a thing even in a job. I remember I worked at a lawyer's office, and the boss would come around and be like, oh, can you do this, can you do that? I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And then I turn around, he'd leave, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know, I can't do any of that, I don't know what he just said, but then I figured it out.
Right.
And I think that is exactly how I got to where I am today, is like doing things that I want to do but don't necessarily feel like I am ready, because that's a way that I personally force myself to get ready for that opportunity. So to answer your question, when I showed up over there and I just saw these amazing cakes, I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be good. And then because you can kind of start seeing, it's like you show up the day before, you set up your cake, and then you can make a couple of changes. So actually that night, I went to my hotel room and I stayed up all night just like tweaking my cake and doing all these things. And that's another thing I think that I'll always, I'll lose the sleep. A lot of the cake competitions I've done, people will start going to sleep, going to bed. I'm like, can I really want to sleep? And then I will just, until I feel like now I have my best shot, is when I'll kind of be like, all right, we can rest, or, whatever. So I think that kind of answers that. Like, just always going for it, ready or not. And, what's the worst that can happen? You go, you lose, but you maybe have a good time.
A lot of takeaways from what you've just shared with us. But the most beautiful part about what you just talked is the part where you said the first step towards doing anything in life is making that first step towards it, right?
Say yes.
Saying yes.
We love that.
Yeah, because a lot of people, you're not scared about the outcome of it, or how you'll do it, because you already have your heart in it, right? That means 100% you're going to put in the hard work that might be required, and you're not scared about it because you want to do it with your heart, right? Anything else in life, when your heart is not in it, then the scare, the fear kicks in.
Yeah, if your heart's not in it, that means you don't want to do it. If you don't want to do it, in some things, of course, obviously we have to do a lot of things we don't want to do, but it's like when you have a dream, especially, and it's so cheesy when you say it. The first step is saying yes. And the reason I know that it's really cheesy is, like, I taught school for 7 years. And so I taught middle school, and then I taught high school. And a lot of my students, because during this time of teaching was kind of when my television, the reality TV show career kind of came into it. And so a lot of my students kind of saw this journey with me. So I'd be like missing for a couple of days, and then show back up, and then a couple months later, show would come out. And so they would ask me a lot of questions about, well, how did you do it? Or more likely, and I taught at a public school, more likely they would say, well, you're just so lucky, and I can never do that. And so then I'm like, okay, inspiration teacher, here I come. Yes, you can. Anybody can do it. Like, you have no idea how easy it was. And easy it was to apply. Now, easy to get on is that's a whole other chapter. But they would always just, oh my God, like, why are you, that's so corny, or and it is corny. And I tell them that, and I'm a big corn on the cob, because I'm corny, and it works out. That's just what I would tell them. And so it's funny, but it's really true. It's so true. And I wish everybody could sort of embrace that thing of, like, you meet people, it could be your family members or anyone really, in every conversation. Almost every day I have this when I speak to someone. Well, they'll bring up what's going on in their life. And I just can't get to it, and I have this. And I'm just always in my head, and I'll never tell them this because it's like I'm just their ear to kind of lean on that day, or their shoulder. But I'm like, yes, you can. You just have to do it. It's stay up a little later, wake up a little earlier, but it's just like so crazy.
Yeah, but like you said, for someone looking at it from the outside, it is very difficult to understand what you're trying to express until they are in your shoes.
Yes.
But that is the point of this podcast show. Hopefully, they'll take a lesson again. And, like I always keep saying in every episode that if you're still looking for a sign, this is your sign from Kayla, to go
Yes.
for it. Just start. And a lot of people are really good at any skill that they have in their life, but they stick it to their close knit of friends or family, and they never try to get out of it because they're happy with whatever they have, and what they can show. But people like you and people like us, we want to make a larger impact, and hopefully inspire a larger audience, because we know what it takes to push yourself. So we try to give that back to the world out there, a little magic. Yeah. But what a cool mom to have.
What a cool teacher to have is what I
Yeah.
was thinking.
No, I was thinking, she can make
Her
literally
daughter can ask for
any kind of cake. My initial memories of cakes are, those very simple single, level layers of cake. And then I used to do these cake shops or bakeries back home, and then I would, look at those fancy, three tier cakes. So when did you realize that, okay, there's some artistic side towards baking? It's not just plain, single pattern or design. You can, make real life objects.
And it must have taken so much experimentation.
Yeah.
Like so many
It still
failed
does.
cake, so much icing gone wrong, or fondant not being the right consistency, and no one really sees that side, but that's what we want to hear.
And who was the guinea pig during this journey of yours that had to go through the taste tests?
Okay, so the experimentation, you have no idea. It still does. It's like it's an ever evolving thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure just like podcasts, and oh my gosh, I don't envy you guys, because it's like with the technology, with the ever evolving social media trends, it's with the new shows coming out for cakes, it's always something new. So basically, when I realized that cakes could be cool, was I was just at a birthday party, and somebody had made a cake, and it just looked like a present, and it didn't look like a cake. And I was like, that's not, that's not a present. And so that's when I really, because I had already gotten the fondant at that point. I was trying to do the whole thing, but I was still doing like white fondant and polka dots and this kind of thing. And it wasn't long after that I saw that. And I just took to the internet, hours of research and trying different things and trying different brands, because you can make your own, you can buy it, you can do all the stuff making your own. I couldn't do that. That was so messy and hectic. And then, you would be surprised that every brand is different. And so like finding my sweet spot, and then learning just how to, it's like a baby, how to take care of the little baby, how to like finesse it and make it work. It is crazy. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's really the more that you do it. It's like with anything. I teach a lot of cake classes now that I'm out of the actual classroom, and I'll tell everyone, I promise that today when you leave, you're going to have something that looks really pretty. And I do. And they hate it through the process. It's normal. They hate it. Like me too. I made a video once of my inner monologue of making a cake. And it's like there's all this self-doubt and like, ew, this is ugly. And why did I choose this? And oh, I can't do this. But then you're like, oh my God, I love this thing. I can't wait to do this again. And it's just one of those weird things. But what I tell them is when you leave today, it will look good. And of course, I've been here to kind of hold your hand. But the only way to get good at anything, anything worth being good at, is to practice it. And there are a couple people in this world, us small amount of them who are just naturally good at some of the things that, you know, it took me years to get to a place where I know cake, because now I'm an expert at it. You know, I didn't naturally have that innate, like, I have a very good friend of mine. She lives here in Lafayette, and she was actually on a lot of shows with me. And she's a teacher as well. And she is like a natural artist, and she has that touch, and her stuff is just amazing on the first try. And mine is it. And so it's like, you know, you just have to just work at the thing. It could be one simple project and just keep touching it until it gets right.
Right.
And so, you know, once I realized that cakes could be this crazy amazing thing, then it just was this whole journey in the kitchen. You know, been a lot of kitchens throughout my life, moving around, and then even the traveling for the cake shows. And it's crazy how like they connect to my memories, but it's you know, sort of like that. And then I like to think when I really got good was realizing that cakes are art. And so I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching art videos. So like watching clay sculpting to learn how to sculpt modeling chocolate or things like that. And tiling, like how to tile something. That's really random. But growing up, my dad, he's a big hands-on guy. He's my role model of life. I'm lucky to have that, you know, to have grown up with someone who could be my role model. And I always watched him like building things, and he's really handy. He's still the handiest guy. I try so hard. So I remember I did this one cake in a competition, and I just remember how he would tile, and then he'd put the grout and he'd wipe the grout off. So I did like fondant, and then I did buttercream as the grout and like wiped it off, and it really looked like, you know, brick. It was so cool. And so it's just like learning different techniques to
Yeah.
things that aren't cake and then applying them there is really the way that you get a little edge.
I was just thinking, even with the podcast show, it took
Mhm.
us about 6-7 months of, you know, doing this to have a guest like you know, a Netflix star. We will keep calling you a Netflix star, but
I'll
you know,
take
it
it.
took, took us half an year to do this, and this is just in terms of a podcast show, right?
Mhm.
Anything in life, any career, I think it's just the mindset now, right? In today's generation, people want that instant success, or you know, that feeling of accomplishment. But
Hopefully, when they listen to your story,
yeah,
they know that it's been a decade or even longer, right? Like
Yeah.
more.
that's the good thing about podcasts, right? Because you can get to know the entire story
Yeah.
about the person, because
Yeah.
otherwise the video clips online that you usually see,
Yeah.
maybe on Instagram, you only see like small part of their entire day, which is which when you look at, you'll have this feeling within yourself, and you'll you know, you'll doubt yourself, right? You know, why am I not able to do this, right? Because you're not able to see the remaining 23 hours 59 minutes of their day
Yeah.
that takes into putting that 1 minute of video into that platform.
Even us, when we were watching the show, all we could think was these people are naturally gifted.
Yeah.
Like these people have so much talent, and so we don't see the hard work that goes behind it.
And they had struggles and failures right on the show.
Also,
Yes.
Yeah, right on
Yeah.
the show. Even though you had so many years of experience and practice, you still ended up making those mistakes, and you know, and then
being brave enough, and
yeah,
you know, having the courage to sort of be that vulnerable
yeah.
in front of so many people watching, that's something.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the beautiful side about being a creative artist, right? You're putting yourself out in the public, you know, eye.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
everything that you do in your life is visible out there. There's nothing to hide. You know, there's no faking of, you know, anything about your career or your thoughts
Your
or your mindset.
personality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
So
Yeah. And you have to be very careful with that. That's a huge, you make yourself so vulnerable
yeah,
with that. You know, you said earlier, like, what a cool mom or a cool teacher to have. It's, you want to make, personally, I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm making everyone proud and I'm acting in a way that is authentic to myself, because I am a little silly and I'm a little
right,
crazy, but
right.
also doing it in a way that's like, you know, having integrity, and then, you know, having values and things that to where when my daughter or students,
A
then
lot
they'll
to
love
a
it.
lot to carry on
It
your
is.
shoulder. A lot of responsibility.
It is. If it's different when you have a family, because it's if I was just single old me, number one, probably wouldn't have gotten this far without asking for help and having the people that support me. But it's like they're a guiding force. It's like make sure that you're making everybody proud and not just proud as in winning, but proud to be a part of your family and a part of your circle. So
Right.
that's always like my mother is like my guiding compass of like your mother's gonna see this, you got to make her proud kind of thing. That's like I feel like the small Louisiana kind of like Cajun culture coming into it is like I do a lot of things like being on these shows, traveling in general. My mom's just like she's really from a small town. And then so I still live really close to her. I talk to her every day. And a lot of things that I do, she's like, oh my God, I just don't see it. Like, I just don't. She's always been a little of a skeptic and been like, I don't know if I would do that. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm going to do it. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, like she's going to
Now
see,
sure.
yeah. She's not like that so much anymore, but she really was like always the person at the beginning. A lot of people will just be like, yeah, go for it. She's not. And so I actually thank her for that because although she believed in me, I think she was worried for the part of like, you're putting yourself out there, and just like, I don't see, how you can do that or just be careful. And so it's
Right.
good to have her, that kind of person as well. But the show, speaking of just like the time and so out of all of the shows that I've done a lot of, the 5 previous ones were Food Network shows, and they were like all produced by different production companies, and working for every production company is really different. It's you're a contestant. They call you the talent, and then you're kind of introduced to the show. Pretty much you'll have meetings, they let you know the rules, and it's always a different way. And then the way that they kind of like handle it, treat you, of course they always treat you well, but just the way that like where you're staying or how the day is going to work and how much time you have and kind of just the layout of the show in general has all been drastically different than like Is It Cake 2. And so when I kind of showed up over there, which number one, it's a huge time commitment to film this show because it's not just a one episode show. It's a full season, and you commit to the full season. So once you're eliminated, you're not on the show anymore. We didn't know at the time, but you have to stay there. You don't get to come home. You don't, you have to kind of stay where you are. And then we didn't know at the time, but we got to go back for the finale. And this show, once I kind of got there and felt how real this was, because they didn't have it on season 1. So I wasn't really prepared for it. So then it became like, to me, I was like, well, okay, now we're fighting for our life here, because we didn't just give up all this time with our family and my daughter to come here and not be on the show and like get eliminated and be somewhere in the back. So this was the hardest show that I've ever done because the talent was so big. It was amazing. It was crazy. And also the community of cakes is kind of small, which is funny because Jared Altmark, I competed on a show with him already. And so when we actually got to meet each other, he walked in the trailer and he looked at me and he was like, Kayla. And I was like, Jared, because he's so much younger, but he's so good. And he doesn't do cakes full time. And so, but he is an artist in himself. And I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I actually won the show that we did. And he looked at me and he said, redemption, like he wanted to get redemption. And I was like, oh my God. And I got so excited because it's really fun. We grew to love each other. And I'm sure, in the show you saw and people can see the emotions, like people would get eliminated and then we're crying where you should really be rejoicing.
Entire cast, we would feel emotional just watching. We can't imagine how much stronger those emotions were for you guys, being and much time together.
Yes. And luckily they didn't show it all because there was a lot of boo-hooing on there. And I was like, man, I've never really like cried on TV before. I'm kind of nervous how this is going to come off. And they didn't even put that much of it. So I was like, oh, thank you, which is a lighthearted family show. So I guess they weren't trying to be like showing all that part. But it's an interesting dynamic. And so I think that all of us as a cast, especially me, I've changed as a person just by going on that one show. You just
Right.
appreciate a lot of different things. And then now even watching it back, and I think this show has gotten the most media attention than all the shows I've done because, and it's also there. You can go and watch it on Netflix. You can rewind it. You know, nobody says rewind anymore, but you can do all that. And whereas the other shows, like they have air dates, they might rerun. Like I'll have a show like rerun. One time I was in, you know, in a restaurant and the show like came on. And that's really rare. And so there's been a lot more critical people being critical on the internet of each and every one of the cast members, which I am pretty good at handling that. I don't take a lot that seriously. You know, I
Right.
take my energy and the things that need to be taken seriously. I can do that. But a lot of other things, and also high school students have told me more about myself than anybody on the internet could ever, you know, I'm not surprised. But just kind of looking at each one of the cast members and how they're dealing with everyone's gotten their own negativity online. And you just kind of can appreciate each person even more because it's like, man, you know, some people are getting more than others. And it's just like, it's just a crazy social experiment that we all entered into. And yeah, I don't even know. It's just so crazy.
Social experiment is what it looks like even to us
Yeah.
while watching, because I think somewhere everyone watching, they tend to forget that you're also human beings. You
Oh, yeah.
also have your own struggles and you're going through your own things. But yeah, which I'm going to ask a very controversial question right now.
Do it.
Is your favorite castmate?
Who is my favorite castmate?
Yes.
Oh gosh. Okay. That's tough because so Liz Merrick is probably one of my better friends. She's one of my best friend on the cast. We actually knew each other. We were brand ambassadors for a phonic company together out of Liverpool before. So we like traveled together. I was so happy to see her. I was so intimidated and like, what? But I was also very happy when she walked in. But so it would be easy to say, you know, she's my favorite. But being there, I think Justin from Cake It with Justin, he made the duffelback cake. He was one of my favorites because he is hilarious. And I was shocked. And when he got eliminated, I was truly like, this did not just happen because first of all, that duffelback cake was crazy good. In person, I was like, this is wild to me. But okay, like I almost disagreed with everyone of always thinking like, I think mine was worse. Like every time I was like, maybe I should have known, but I don't know. Like they definitely shouldn't have. It was like a crazy dynamic, but he is hilarious. And when I got to sit like on the couch with him, and you know, when we were kind of watching everything, I was just laughing the whole time. And then, you know, of course, being in the kind of like in the trailer before we would compete and stuff, he brought a real lightness to the show, like a bright sort of like energy. And then when he left, I felt I felt his absence the most because I was like, man, like where's that goofball fun kind of guy that was here? So if I had to pick a favorite, and they're all really my favorite and they know it,
Right.
but I was
Yeah.
like, he's the one. I was like, I'm forcing you to be my best friend. So
I have a question about now that we talked about the show so much. Did you guys really bake for 6 hours at a stretch or 7? How many was it?
I think
8 hours.
8. Yeah. So yes. And
Oh
I
my.
would like to say that this, you know, not breaking any contracts from our previous shows, that this isn't always the case.
Oh, okay.
Because it takes time to make a show and it takes time to make cakes. And
Right.
yes, I would like to say for everyone out there that this show is the most authentic to the time limit thing that I've ever done. And it's really wild because I could never make, for example, the Bosu ball cake that I made. I think I baked just baking was 4 hours of my time. And that's why like that cake was that was like my first one on there. And I've never not finished a cake. And I felt like, oh, there was so much more to be done. And I was like really down on myself after that cake, even though watching it on TV, it looks good.
It was one of the largest cakes. So
It was.
like 4 hours makes sense.
Yeah, and everybody's like, "What are you?" And I think they show Liz's face, like she makes the most outward reaction, like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know," because it's like I've made this dome cake before, multiple times, but it really hit me when we got in, we start baking, and I'm like, okay, well, at home I have really big round pans that I can just stack up and then eyeball the carving of it. Well, that's what gives me like the template, like it's round. Well, on the show, they had no really big round pans. It was all like little pans. And I think this Bosu ball was like about a 24-inch wide cake. And they only had like 12-inch round pans. And then that's when it really hit me that like, oh goodness, we have Houston, we have a problem because I can't, it's like a round shape is really hard. And now there's no pan to go off of. And it was just, oh my gosh. So I was doing these experiments that we just talked about where I had like I put a pin in the middle, I measured a string, and then I like went around to try to measure a perfect circle, and it got really weird. And so anyway, I remember just like sweating, and I baked like 16 batches just to get enough cake. And then the icing part of it all. But I remember like when it came together, I was just like, hallelujah. But then the time was already gone away. And so, yes, I also think we, as a cast, kind of like talk about it now watching the show. We always compare it to season 1 because we always wish that we were on season 1 because they didn't have eliminations and it looks so happy and cheery. And I came to the conclusion that the cakes on season 1 were very small and our cakes, they were a lot bigger, and we were all kind of like just strategizing. And I think if you watch it back, a lot of the smaller cakes do better in the judging, and then the larger cakes don't. And it's like, because they're so large, and online there's a lot of like people saying, well, the judges are so far back, and well, it's like, guys, we all have eyes. You can see it's a cake, so they have to give us a little bit of help here. And so they are far back, but the lighting's really good. And it makes it more of, it's just like one of the rules and stipulations of the game. And I think it kind of just helps it all. But yeah, the timing was real. It amazes me to this day because in 8 hours, I don't think that I could even do that again. I'm going to make another Bosu ball cake, by the way. I have the Bosu ball sitting in my cake studio right now, and I just I think I'm going to probably do it tomorrow. I want to try to do it again in the same time. It's never going to happen, but time is real.
You'll see. I'm rooting for you. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're enjoying the episode so far, please make sure to follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Music and any other streaming platforms that you can find it on. But if you're on YouTube
and watching us right now, be sure to take a moment and subscribe, like, comment, and do share it with as many people as you can.
Yes. So can we move on to segment 2?
Yeah.
I know, Kayla, there were so many highlight cakes. Danya's cleats, we have Elizabeth's mitten, which I think was just top level. Pete's boxing, Miko's Mona Lisa at the end. And one thing that really breaks my heart is the hairbrush. I know your Bosu ball, that was the highlight and everything, but that one episode of where you got eliminated, all of us were watching while having dinner, and we felt like it was such a personal loss because it wasn't that you got eliminated because your cake wasn't good enough. It was just a last minute accident. And I was almost in tears while watching not being able to anticipate something like that happening right at the end, a few seconds before the timer's up. I want to ask, how were you so brave? Because I would have tried. You were so strong, knowing that it's not your fault.
Also, would you have done anything different today Now you must have probably thought about that
Yeah.
particular moment again and again. I don't know, maybe you did or not, but would you have done something different to quickly fix it? And this can probably be a quick tip and advice for cake artists
Yeah.
out there. Whenever there's a mishap, maybe you can give an idea on how you can fix it. Yeah.
Yes. So that moment was so crazy because I really spent a lot of time on that brush. It was like 90 minutes of the time, which is a lot of time. And that happened. I already know it's my personal kind of like it's my like fatal flaw. I am crazy and messy in the kitchen. And it really makes things difficult because, it's like I didn't even know, I didn't put the knife down at that moment. It happened beforehand. So I just remember like walking around and just seeing it and being like, ugh. And I actually reacted. I felt like in my mind that I reacted so bad. I was like, oh God, I don't know what this is going to look like. But I guess more so it's like kind of a little bit of like a shutdown moment, which I was thankful for because I just felt like I threw a fit, but I guess I didn't. Thankfully, in that moment, I really felt like, oh my God. But yes, so that was a result of me just kind of like getting a little crazy. The minutes are coming to an end, and really, it does make me so. It makes me feel good because the cast on the couch was like, Kayla, we think this was actually your best cake. We couldn't tell. And that was really, even in the show, you can see they were going to pick like another number and like last minute, they just picked that one. And she said it was because of the brush, which I was like, at least sort of thankful for that because it was like, yeah, I mean, if you can see anything, it was the brush. But what they actually, the part they don't show is we set up our cake. So we're allowed to physically pick up our cake and bring it on the podium.
Okay.
So that happens, of course, between shots because like it's our baby, like we bring it up there. I guess they don't if they were to drop it or something crazy like, so they let us do that. And we are also, we can set it up.
Are you also allowed to set up the decoys as well? Like that's up to you as well, how you want to display.
Yeah. Yes. So the decoys, which is such a controversial part of the show, and everybody's like, it's cheating. And I think they don't realize that we were encouraged to, play the game. It's a game. And like you said, it wasn't because your cake was bad. And that was something we all sort of, our brain had to kind of mold to, was that this is a game show. It's not necessarily a cake show. Because that's not exactly what it's about, especially with the type of judges and the kind of erratic judging style. Agree with it or not, that's that is the game. So so we could kind of like set them up there. However, and so there's a moment, it's like the integrity, like I had too much love for that brush that I wanted them to see the bristles. Like, so if the show, the brush is like this and the bristles are coming up, the brush is laying down and the bristles are, showing upwards. And so they can see them. And in retrospect, I wish that I wouldn't have wanted to show off these bristles because they were messed up. And I really wish that I would have just placed the brush the opposite way, face down, because then you couldn't see them. Right. But like in that moment, just like whatever part of me was like, no, like I made the brush, we're going to show the brush, and I guess, which keeps the integrity of the show and the cake and everything as well. But really, I could have faced it down. And I think that two things I would have done differently is one, I would have faced the brush down. Two, a lot of people kind of like after asked me, why didn't you use pasta for the bristles? Because the pasta is skinnier and I used modeling chocolate and I strewed it out. And it was kind of fat, but far away, I just felt like that wouldn't have mattered. And I didn't at the time because I like the idea that you can pick up the cake and just chomp on it. And I would really hate for like a judge to pick up the brush and then just get like a pasta shoved in their mouth. So I didn't want to do that. Right. Just for my part of the artistry on a whole, like an edible cake. But, again, going back, I probably would have just done that because then it would have been, not as thick bristles and maybe they wouldn't have noticed it. And then if they would have mushed, it wouldn't really mattered because I could just stand the Mac up or whatever. So, So yeah, that was really a thing.
I understand where you're coming from, because I know that one of the most amazing elements of the show was just people coming up to the cake, and when they eat it, the judges, when they eat it, they're so shocked that they can, you know?
Yes. Yeah,
So
and I think I said it, and of course they cut it, they put it on the show, and I think I was telling maybe Miko or someone in it, and I realized that the object that I picked was sort of strange. Like no one uses hot rollers anymore, and so
Right.
I was kind of like, that might be good because maybe they won't know what this thing is. But also, I wanted the brush because I knew the detail. I didn't make up this, this brush thing. Someone has made a realistic brush before. And I remember watching a video, kind of like knowing I was going on Is It Cake. And when the videos were kind of going viral online. And so I remember watching it and being like, okay, this is how you make a brush. Well, then when I saw the brush, I immediately was like, okay, like I know how to do this. And I really wanted to make it for like the artist part of me, or the kind of like give me a challenge part, because I could have picked the smaller item. I really loved the trash can, but that was huge and I was over huge things. Um, but the toothbrushes were so small, and being far away, I was like, this is like an easy one. Not that it was easy. Pete did an amazing job. It's not easy, but like in my mind at the time. And so I was just like, I want to go for not the biggest because I don't want to be crazy anymore, and not the smallest, but something that if I can trick them, number one, that I will actually have the chance to really get the win. And I felt like the brush was going to be like the thing that's like, wow, this is amazing, because it really did look so real.
just the brush, I think every choice that you made, I have to say, I have to commend you for this. You made the toughest choices.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
and
we
a lot of people
were
tell me that.
watching, we were like,
Mhm.
why is Kayla doing this to herself?
The ukulele.
Oh my God.
I know. So I think I was just doing things I really wanted to make, or like things that I was hoping. For example, the ukulele. The thing that really made me want to make it was the strings, because I knew a technique, and strings are really, really hard to do. And that didn't work out time wise. And then also, I wanted to make the hole hollow. And there's like this brand sticker on the inside of the hole. And I was like, I just need to put a little sticker on there. It's really going to fool them. And of course, all these big ideas, you don't have the time to bring that to fruition.
Right.
So I was just, going for the gusto is all I could say. And because I think like somebody was like, why wouldn't you pick the cheese puffs and the beer? And it's like when you're there, you're looking at it, you're thinking like the beer, that's repetition. So it's like you had to make 6 of them look the same. And that is really difficult in general. So it's like
Right.
I was kind of weeding out things. And I know people keep telling me that. I'm like, oh, it's, you don't realize it when you're doing it and you're on the spot. And they, I don't think they really show this part, but sometimes people would take a minute or two to think it through and be like, oh, I guess I'll go with this. I don't know. And Mike would be like, right, got to pick. You have to pick right now. So it's like a lot of pressure. And
that episode, even Mikey, we saw like the entire set, we could sense the emotion, and it was like
Yeah.
everyone feels that loss when you had to walk out. It was
But
really tough watching.
this goes back to how we started the conversation, right? This goes back to Kayla's character, where she is gonna say yes. Yes. One of the toughest objects out there that you put it in front of me, I'm gonna choose that one, irrespective of me, seeing, the final picture of if I'm able to do it or not.
I remember thinking, why is Kayla making it so hard for herself? Why doesn't she just pick
Yeah.
once? She can pick something easy, just other customers. But
I know. Well,
Yeah.
saying going through with that is being there, and you're, especially when you're on the couch watching, the whole time what I was really doing was strategizing.
Right.
And playing the game. I just kept trying to play the game so that I could get further in the game. And so, because that's what I was there for, it's like once I realized I don't really mold a lot of things, and I realized like there's a lot of molding going on here, is again another controversial thing, but that is just part of we got to do it in a time limit. So then I just realized like, okay, I need to be able to mold more things. I need to be able to do this whole deal. And so it was really strategy, because it was like, you want to trick them. And I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to trick them, because they were just all experts at picking cakes, apparently. And but I just wanted it also to be impressive. And I've even seen some kind of people were like, you're just doing the weirdest flavors. who eats PB&J. But I also think that that's another element to the competition. And honestly, I don't think the judges appreciated it like I sort of would, but it's like I thought it was cool to do a flavor kind of, because it's really
It's
quickly.
with the theme. And it's
Yes.
with the
And I was like, oh, what can we do with the theme? Because that is an added element that maybe this was a thing in my past cake shows, and that might just be like something that I took from those shows and was trying to make it a thing here, but it really wasn't. And maybe I should just went for the most delicious thing. And actually, the worst and the most sad part about the brush episode was, although that does I was like, this flavor goes to Louisiana, it's king cake flavor. That was really just like for taste. That one was really would have been like so good, and they don't even eat it. And I was just like, what is this? So that was kind of crazy. But they don't I talked about it, they don't show it, but so it's in the episode with the ukulele. I had sat on the bench, and then I had competed it with the Boasted Ball. And so then the ukulele was episode 3, and I wanted to like actually buy another episode. So I attempted to throw that competition. And when I wasn't even good at doing that, but when the wall came around, I just was like, what isn't cake? Because I would like to kind of take a break and just buy myself another episode, just kind of trying to get further, like doing the whole thing. And I just remember I chose the fridge because it was big, it looked really not cakey, and I didn't spend a lot of time because I was just like, whatever, it's so big, they're not going to make this the item. There were so many like items with a lot of detail, they had a lot of options that they could have made that the cake. And I just remember when like Mikey was like, Dania, you picked the fridge, and I was like, you picked the fridge? Why would you pick the fridge? It's clearly not a cake. And then somebody else picked the fridge. And when I realized, I was like, the fridge is the cake. I mean, really, you can't even throw the competition. But luckily, I made the choice really quickly, because it almost matters just as much to be quicker than it does to like, get it right. Yes, because that is your order in picking the options. And if you watch the show, kind of how it goes, besides episode 1, the person who gets to pick first, because there's a lot of good options on there, and usually everyone that I would be like, ooh, it would get picked first, that person usually does pretty well. They either trick them or they win. And so I was just happy that in that moment, like I wasn't last, but at least I threw it quickly. But I was just a little tidbit.
So just to give you a background, we watch the show while having our dinner every single night. Every episode, we watch it as a family. But there are few things that definitely messes us up. First thing
I know what you're gonna say.
first thing is when the host, when Mikey cuts the cake and he drops it on the floor, it makes us so mad that a piece of cake is being just thrown away like that.
Because we would kill to taste that cake.
Yes.
And the second thing is the guests who are invited to judge, the cakes. The time that they're given is so less to make that decision on that box. And weirdly, many of them make the decisions, with less thought, and just to make sure they're doing it within that time. They don't realize that whatever the decision they're gonna make is gonna affect the career, the contestant career. So that messes me up so bad that they just do it for fun, just select the buttons quickly. But it's the show and it's the concept. There's no fighting it.
We would kind of sit there and we were being judged, and they were doing their whole judge thing, and we were thinking the same thing. It's like we just sweat tears. We just put it all on the table with that cake, and they're just like, oh, we don't know, blah blah blah. And I think that when they didn't pick on time, there's a couple of things, I've obviously thought about it a really long time. I think a couple of things. One is they only have one little buzzer to buzz in on or click on, a little, and I'm like, can we just give everybody one, because at least someone might click in. And then the budget's there for it. Let's get them a little iPad or whatever they use. And the second thing is, to no fault of the judges really, I think they're acting because a lot of them are actors, right? So sometimes I would kind of like, I think I would recognize it from some of my other shows, just kind of like giving them what you want, giving them what they want to hear kind of thing. And they'd be like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, I think that they're trying
Yeah.
to give the act, but really not giving the cakes the time of day. And, again, I think it happens so quickly too, that it's like, to no fault of the judges, really. It's just like they're just doing the thing and they think this is whatever, what the people want. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
With the
it us
timeline,
too. It's hard.
with the time, I really noticed how, I think this happened a couple times, more than 3 times, if I remember correctly, that they couldn't press the buzzer on time.
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking, when the first time it happens, they're extra aware, and then the next contestant is definitely, under there are more
Yes.
chances of, the next contestant being, eliminated, right?
Right. Right.
And
Yeah,
that's
I do some kids camps, and a kid told me this once, and I was like, this is a good point, because I need to watch it back, I guess. I don't know if they make this clear, but the order that you guess the cake in. So if you're the quickest person to guess, let's say you were the top 2, you go on that first round. So that's why it even matters more that you pick quicker, because you're on that first round. And by round 2, yeah, they've wised up. They're like, oh no, we have to actually, click in. And then they're kind of like, even if they've never seen a realistic cake before, now it's like they've already got to cut it.
Yeah.
Yes, they get to look at it up close. They get to kind of know, like, oh, this is what cake looks like. So it's one of those things where it's like, that's another part of the game, is to like guess quickly, because you're in that first round, because that second round spin, it has its challenges,
Yeah.
crazy shows.
Let's talk about the nerves, because I wanted to give the people out there a little experience. Do you do anything in your daily life that helps you, in these pressure moments in your life, on cake shows and all of that? Because in in that limited time that you have to focus all your energy on, doing your best, right? And you can't really have the freedom of having those nerves and having the fear of, being on a camera and all of that. So has any of the practices in your daily life helped you?
So that is an interesting one, because I would like to say that I've always been like a little bit afraid of like speaking in front of people, especially growing up when I was younger. I would do the shake, I would shake, my face gets really, really red and things like that. It is easier on camera because there's really not like 100 people in there. It's just cameras.
Right.
And I've always had like a person with me. Usually it's like I have an assistant or something. So I've never really got the nerves until this show. And
Okay.
in the moments that I would get the nerves on this show, all I would do, and again, I think I'm actually lucky because I don't take too many things so seriously that I would, that it would just cripple me of nerves. I always think like I'm lucky to be here. Just kind of more of like I just like kind of talk myself through it mentally. I don't know if it's something that I do every day, but in the moment, for example, when the brush happened, or at the end of the Bosu ball cake or whatever, when I was literally, I don't know if they showed this all, but I was really to the minute, to down to the second on getting some details. And I even like say a comment like, I really don't know if I'll be able to finish this. And that's something I don't ever usually say. I'm pretty positive. It's I would say, my toxic trait is probably that I am just eternally optimistic and sometimes too positive. But because like it'll be like, read the room, Kayla, nobody's happy here. And then I'll just be like, oh, but that was one of my, one time that every time it actually happened, where at the end I would think, I can't do this. And that's not something that I usually think. Like usually I'm thinking, oh, we got this, like it's going to work itself out. And so in those moments, all that I would do is just like, you got this far, you have something in front of you, and you just keep moving. And just, I would tell myself, you actually can make cakes. Like you got here because you know how to make cakes. It's a new daily practice. Maybe this might be it, that I tell myself that I am an expert in my field and I earned this, because a lot of people now are saying, oh, you're a star, or you are one of the best bakers in the world or the country. They'll say those things. And to me, I'm like, it's hard for me to buy in, but I'm trying to buy in. And I think that's a good thing for people out there. Maybe a good message is like, just don't ignore your successes. Like, buy into the hype because you can be your biggest hype man, and there's no problem in that. And I have a lot of trouble putting myself out there as far as there's a lot of things with cake people getting brand deals, and it's kind of like the same as even influencers and in social media influencers, or it's like, so I talk to people, I'm like, how are you getting these deals? I think that they'll just show up on my doorstep, and they will not. And you have to be the person that tells people that you're awesome, shows people that you're awesome, because you're the only one that's going to do it. And once I got over that strange hump of like being too modest, you still want to be like a good person. You're not like being full of yourself. But I think there's a point of kind of recognizing your worth and being like, no one got to where you are today except for yourself. And you earned it. And so in all those moments, that's what I go to.
And your journey is unique, and that's what makes you, right?
Exactly.
I remember I think yesterday I was sharing with Sankalp that I read this little post that someone had put, that it's only cringy and embarrassing until you get that one video that makes it popular, or where you really go viral or whatever, and then everyone suddenly wants to be you.
Yes. Well, I have I think Liz Merrick asked me this. She was like, Kayla, when are you going to start doing more videos? And my husband will actually tell me this a lot too. So as many television shows as I've done and time in front of the camera and things like that nature, you don't see a lot of videos of me making cakes with my face in the camera and me doing that, because I'm just like, oh, like you said, the word cringy. It's like, oh gosh, this is weird. Like I look weird, or, oh, my nails aren't done today and my hair's not done today. And it's like, this is my personal battle that I'm literally facing at this moment, given the success that I've had. And I'm trying to capitalize on that and move with the momentum. And I'm like telling myself, Kayla, you need to make these videos. Just do it. Doesn't matter if everything's not perfect. And so we'll see. Maybe you'll see some more videos popping up, because I'm really trying to make that a thing as my next big goal in cakes.
We definitely hope
Absolutely.
to see more.
I mean, when you started this journey in your career, I'm sure you had certain goals and milestones in your head. Maybe, being part of these Food Network shows and, now on Netflix and all of that. What does Kayla wants to do next? What do you want to, what are your next milestones for this year, maybe, or the next few years? Where do you see yourself going?
So I am trying to, from a business standpoint, I want cakes to be my career. I want to continue on this route. Everyone asks, will you open a bakery? And I actually did that for a year, and it wasn't kind of like, it didn't feed into my passion the way that the artistry in cake does, and teaching other people. So I'm going to take my experience in teaching and then my experience in cake, and the goal is to take it online and kind of offer cheap and affordable online courses. You can find a lot of cake courses. A lot of them are $50 or more, and I want to do something to where I can film basic courses all the way, children's courses all the way to expert, and then sell them for $5, because I'd rather sell 10 for $5 than 1 for $50. And it's like that. So that's what I want to do. And it really is hard, because I have to balance like stepping back from making cakes for people, and because the time that takes versus the payoff. So really my goal is to do that. And the next step in my goal, it's kind of going to bring me a little closer to that, is recently I've been named the US ambassador for a show that's going to be taking place. It's one of those conventions I was telling you about. It's in the Philippines, in Manila. And so I'm going there in November, and that's going to be really good, because I feel like it's going to broaden sort of my brand and like what I have to offer, like, further than just what social media can do here, in the US or wherever it's reaching. So really getting out there and like meeting people and letting them kind of like get to know me. And then also like, because I want to help people. I would love people to become more confident in their decorating or cake skills because of me. I think that would be really cool. And even if they take one little piece of information from my online courses, I would love that. So that's my next goal. And that online, my goal time is October. I like to put like a day on it, and then, a month or something that I'll have that like up and running. And then who knows?
Just, I would buy your cake course, even if it was $50. I would absolutely buy it.
Well, thank you.
I think that that's not because you know what you bring to the table, right? And it's really important to not undermine your worth when you have to sell yourself, so to speak.
That is true. And I try, like, I like to think that I have like a bright personality, and, I like, I'm trying to also have a t-shirt line. So the shows actually the shirts I wore on the show, I designed them. So like the Body by Cake and the Bad Baker and all those fun shirts. I like to think they're fun for bakers. I designed those. And so that's another like kind of aspect of it. And I've actually got a lot of people really loving them. So, and they're not online yet to sell. So that's I think my internet people, the people who deal with all that hard stuff, told me by the end of the week. So yeah, it's like putting your personality and then, staying true to yourself and who you are. And then also being smart business wise. It's like this whole thing.
Well, we have two last questions to ask. I'll ask one, and then Monica will wrap up with our final question. So the backbone of this show is we believe in this phenomenon of butterfly effect, where we hope that these conversations will make an impact and someone will take a lesson out of the journey or experience that you've shared. So any tips or advice for people who are starting out in their career in the cake business, that has helped you, and you look up to someone who inspire you in this career, and that has helped you reach this stage? Any tips or maybe for your own younger self? Would you have done something different? Any spoilers?
Let's see. Well, so yes, I have tips for people. I don't know. It's really hard to say that I would have done anything differently, because I really feel that I'm exactly where, I kind of wanted to be. Of course, I wish my reach was bigger. I wish that, I had my own show, like, I feel like I could be a cool host on a cake show. But so I don't know if I would give any tips to myself. I don't know. But what I would like to say to the aspiring baker is that the leap from the starting point to the Instagram video that you're watching or the YouTube video that you're watching is really not that big. And so it's all about just moving forward, kind of like what I've been saying. But I think it's not thinking that anything is out of reach, because that will only stifle your growth, and everything's within reach. I mean, we are 2023. The internet's at our fingertips. Anybody can be famous at this point with video and everything. So I think it's like, just have faith in yourself, because that would, if anything has maybe slowed down my journey, might have been like, well, I have a family, I can't travel, or I can't do all these things. Like, look at all this time that these people are putting in, or I don't know anything about websites or things like that. So you can make the time and you can learn about websites pretty easily. And so I think it's just like push through, have faith in yourself, and like literally nothing is impossible, as again, corny as that sounds, because it's really, really true.
No, it's not corny at all. And we believe in that as well. And that's how this episode is happening as well, right? We just reached out to you because we loved watching you on the show. Little did we know that this will actually happen, that we get the chance to, talk to you.
I'm
and
so glad that you did.
Yeah, hopefully do justice, to bringing your story out there. But yeah, like you said, you called it out, you already know this. The first thing is having that idea, and the second thing is going and making that first step. So you mentioned about having your own cake show and all of that. So, and we believe in butterfly effects. So, you
We
said it out loud to the
I
universe.
did.
gonna manifest it.
It's already happening without
Thank
you
you.
knowing.
With before we go on, because it goes into that, the very first show that I did, which was Cake Wars, I was just watching and I was like, I would like to go on that show. Not that I even believed that I could do anything on there, but I was just like, let me see, how do you get on? And I Googled it. So it was a Google search. And the first step is Google searching, guys.
Yeah.
Literally. So I Google searched it and it came up with an application, and I filled out the application, sent it in, and they got back to me and said, we'd like to take you to the next step and send us this. And so I had to send pictures. Then they said, okay, you're in the final step of casting, send us a video. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that they would even look at the application. So I got my sister, who she's 10 years younger than me. And so I've just always she's just been my little partner in crime, and she helps me do all of my things, and she always has. And I told her, I was like, we have to make this video awesome. So I wanted to stick out. So one of my random skills is I can ride a unicycle. It's strange. So I told her, this video, we're not going to make it about cake. I'm going to just ride a unicycle. I'm going to be, I'll tell them, whatever. We had this whole idea. So she videos it, and then I fall off the unicycle, and she's like, oh, let's go again. I was like, no, we're not going to go again. And so I send the video of me riding a unicycle, and like when I fall, I just make it go like bleep. This was a really long time ago too. So this was some editing stuff that wasn't that easy. And so we sent that in, and of course I put a little voiceover like, promise I can make cakes better than I can ride my unicycle. And they called me, and he was like, oh my gosh, we love you. We love this video. This is amazing. But I am so sorry you did not get picked for the show. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I can't even believe you called me. And that was that. And I kind of was just like living my life. I was teaching. And then 1 month later, they called me back and said, hey, we remembered you because your crazy video, and we're casting again, and we would love for you to come be on the show. And so that was, I think, season 3.
That's what made you stand out, like being yourself and not being afraid to show, your authentic true self.
And the point of that is to tell everyone that it's not always about having the perfect cake to show. Or the perfect whatever you're doing to show. Sometimes I've said this a lot. My personality makes up for a lot of my cake shortcomings. And I think that together it's worked out for me. But it's important to think of all the things that you have to offer, not just like hyper focus on one detail.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
I think you've already answered in so many ways the question that I'm about to ask you. So since our show is called What's Your Sankalp? The word Sankalp is an Indian origin word, which means passion or determination in life. And today we want to ask you, what is your Sankalp?
That feels like, that's a heavy question. What is my Sankalp?
I mean, it can be anything, your dreams and passions in your life.
Just be cake.
Yeah, like
I was going to say that is actually, it's cake.
Yeah.
It's my business is, I named it Cheers to Cake because I love a good cheers, because it's a celebration. And whether you're cheersing with, water, whether you're cheersing with a slice of cake, whatever it may be, or a glass of champagne, whatever it may be, it's like there's always a reason to cheers. And so that's why I like Cheers to Cake, because of all of the things that in this like bounty of happiness and success that cake has brought to my life. So, I'm just thankful for it. And I wake up every day and cheers to that. And I think that just like makes life happy and makes life fun, because it can be, I think that sometimes you just have to be happy, and you just have to do it and look at what makes you happy and cheers to it. And so that's my Sankalp.
Thank you so much, Kayla, for being on our episode. We absolutely loved having you.
Thank you. This was so fun. It was so nice, like meeting you guys, computer face to face. I had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to listen to the podcast.
Absolutely. We'll let you know when the episode is ready to be released. I'm hoping to do it this weekend, but we'll see how that goes. But thank you so much for your time. It's an incredible honor. This is kind of a fanboy and fangirl moment for us because we love you. We love your personality more than you being a star. You're an incredible human being. So
yeah.
So to you, and
talent can only get you so far, but I think being an awesome human being is what really makes you stand out.
Of all the people, we wanted to reach out to you because we knew there's some magic that happened in our lives that affected us. So we were cheering for you. We were rooting for you. So here we are on the episode as well. So
thank you. It like really makes me like, I feel that in my heart. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that like, you know, you thought that of me and that, you know, that I brought anything into your life. And so I really appreciate this because this was a good experience. And I love chatting with you guys because it just lets me know that like it matters. And I appreciate that you using your platform to get kind of like my little messages out there as well.
Absolutely. So we'd like to end it on how you like to go about. We hope you and the listeners who are watching,
they be as sweet as the cakes they bake.
Yeah. Cheers to that. Yes. Cheers. Yep. Exactly. That your day be as sweet as the cakes that you make.